Here's your complete part 1, full story, in a cinematic, emotional YouTube storytelling style. Single dad's daughter asked neighbor why she watched him mow. Her answer stunned them both. The little girl stopped walking, looked across the street, and asked a question that made two adults forget how to breathe. Why do you always watch my daddy mow the lawn? The woman standing beside her mailbox froze. The lawn mower engine continued humming across the yard while the single father wiped sweat from his forehead, unaware that his 8-year-old daughter had just uncovered a secret that had lived silently for years. The neighbor's eyes filled with tears. And when she finally answered, both father and daughter stood completely still. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of ordinary people changing lives, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that touch the heart. The town of Maple Ridge, Ohio, was the kind of place where people knew one another's names but rarely knew one another's pain. Small houses lined quiet streets, children rode bicycles in the evenings, and porch lights glowed softly after sunset. At the end of Willow Street lived 38-year-old Nathan Carter and his daughter, Grace. 3 years earlier, Nathan had buried his wife, Rebecca, after a sudden illness stole her from their family. Since that day, life had become a long series of responsibilities. Nathan worked as a maintenance technician at a local warehouse during the day and spent evenings helping Grace with homework, cooking dinner, washing clothes, and trying to be both mother and father. Most mornings began before sunrise. Most nights ended after midnight. The neighbors often saw him carrying groceries with one arm while holding Grace's backpack with the other. They watched him repair his own roof, fix broken pipes, and struggle to keep up with the demands of life. But Nathan never complained. He simply kept moving. Every Saturday morning he mowed his lawn. The old mower rattled loudly as he pushed it slowly across the grass. Grace usually sat on the front steps coloring pictures or reading books while her father worked. And every Saturday, from across the street, a woman named Sarah Mitchell stood beside her window and watched. Sarah was 40 years old, lived alone, and taught music at the local elementary school. Most neighbors considered her quiet. Some thought she was lonely. Others barely noticed her at all. But Grace noticed. Children always notice things adults ignore. Week after week, Grace saw Sarah standing near her curtains whenever her father mowed the lawn. Sometimes Sarah held a cup of coffee. Sometimes she simply looked through the glass with distant eyes. Nathan never paid attention. He was too busy surviving. Money had become tight after Rebecca's death. Medical bills had drained their savings, and Nathan sold many of his belongings to keep the house. The old truck needed repairs. The roof leaked during storms. Some nights he skipped dinner so Grace could have enough. Still, he smiled for his daughter. Grace became his reason to keep going. One autumn afternoon, Grace came home from school upset because other children had made fun of her for not having a mother. Nathan sat beside her on the porch as leaves drifted through the yard. He told her that love never disappears, even when people do. He explained that her mother still lived in every kind thing they did. Grace listened carefully. Then she asked if her father ever became lonely. Nathan could not answer immediately. Because the truth was yes. The house felt empty. The evenings felt long. The silence after Grace fell asleep felt unbearable. But he simply smiled and said that having her made him stronger. Across the street, Sarah watched him from her kitchen window. What Nathan did not know was that Sarah carried her own grief. 7 years earlier, she had lost her fiancé, Michael, in a car accident only weeks before their wedding. After his death, she stopped dating, stopped attending social gatherings, and slowly built walls around her heart. Then one Saturday morning, while drinking coffee, she noticed Nathan mowing his lawn with little Grace following behind him. Something about him reminded her of Michael. Not his face. Not his voice. But the way he cared for someone else without expecting anything in return. She began watching from the window every Saturday because seeing Nathan work quietly for his daughter reminded her that good men still existed. Yet she never said a word. Months passed. Winter came. Snow covered the sidewalks, and Nathan worked extra shifts to afford Christmas presents. He bought Grace a second-hand bicycle that he repaired himself in the garage. On Christmas Eve, the furnace stopped working. Nathan spent hours fixing it while snow fell outside. The next morning, a box appeared on their porch. Inside were homemade cookies, warm scarves, and a note. For Grace. From someone who hopes your Christmas is warm. There was no signature. Nathan suspected one of the neighbors. Grace believed it was an angel. Across the street, Sarah watched from behind her curtains. Spring eventually arrived. The grass grew again. And Saturday mornings returned. One sunny afternoon, Grace decided to walk across the street while Nathan mowed the lawn. She approached Sarah, who was collecting mail. Children possess a courage adults lose with age. Grace looked directly into Sarah's eyes. She asked why Sarah always watched her daddy mow the lawn. Time seemed to stop. Nathan turned off the mower after hearing his daughter speak. Sarah's hands trembled. For several seconds nobody moved. Then Sarah quietly admitted that she watched because Nathan reminded her of someone she had loved very much. She explained that years ago she had lost the man she planned to marry. She said that seeing Nathan care for his daughter every week gave her hope that kindness still existed in the world. She confessed that watching him helped her survive her own loneliness. Nathan stood speechless. Grace looked from one adult to the other. Then she asked another question. If both of you are lonely, why don't you talk? Neither adult had an answer. But that little question changed everything. Over the next few weeks, Sarah began bringing lemonade while Nathan worked outside. Grace invited her to dinner. They talked about music, books, and life. Sarah taught Grace piano. Nathan repaired a broken fence at Sarah's house. The walls that both adults had built over years of grief slowly began to crumble. For the first time since Rebecca's death, Nathan laughed without forcing himself. For the first time since Michael's accident, Sarah opened her heart. Yet healing is never simple. Nathan struggled with guilt. He worried that moving forward meant forgetting Rebecca. Sarah worried she was replacing someone who could never truly be replaced. One evening, Nathan visited Rebecca's grave alone. The sunset painted the cemetery in soft orange light. He placed fresh flowers beside the headstone and admitted through tears that he was tired of being afraid. He said he still loved his wife. He always would. But he also knew that Grace deserved a home filled with joy instead of sadness. As he stood to leave, the wind gently moved through the trees. For the first time in years, Nathan felt peace. Summer arrived. Grace performed her first piano recital with Sarah proudly sitting beside Nathan in the audience. Neighbors began noticing that laughter had returned to the Carter home. The porch light stayed on later. The windows glowed warmer. The silence had disappeared. One evening, Grace sat between Nathan and Sarah on the front steps. She smiled and said that her mother would probably like Sarah. The words brought tears to both adults. Because sometimes children understand healing better than anyone. If this story has touched your heart so far, please write the words, "Kindness heals," in the comments below. Months later, on another Saturday morning, Nathan pushed the lawn mower across the grass once again. But this time Sarah sat beside Grace on the porch. The same street. The same yard. The same old mower. Yet everything had changed. Nathan stopped the mower and looked toward them. Sarah smiled. Grace waved. And in that moment Nathan finally understood why Sarah had watched him all those years. She had not been watching a man mow his lawn. She had been watching hope. She had been watching a father refuse to give up. She had been watching proof that love can survive loss. As evening settled over Willow Street, the three of them shared dinner beneath the soft glow of porch lights. The future remained uncertain, and no promises were made. But something stronger than promises had begun to grow. Trust. Friendship. Healing. And the understanding that sometimes the people who save us live only across the street. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your support helps these stories reach people who may be carrying silent pain. Because sometimes one small question from a child can open two broken hearts. And sometimes the person quietly watching from the window is simply waiting for permission to live again. On Willow Street, a little girl asked one innocent question. And three lonely people found their way home.